Okay. So we're going to get started today with two major topics that are going to inform the labs for this week. The lab for this week. I hope they'll be of help for those going to the lab immediately following this. And we're also going to be starting, so as part of that, we're going to be starting a topic of debugging that I'm hoping to finish up today so that we can go on to a brief discussion of shell scripting for the next lecture, but we may have to concentrate further on debugging depending on the flow of things and how far we get through the material. There are three announcements. The first announcement has to do with the release of the final lab. So that's up there on the middle site now. It consists of exercises that involve, on the one hand, substitution using regular expressions using this tool SED that we'll be discussing. Secondly, it involves an exercise using subversion, where I'm asking you to simulate it, to recreate a situation where there's a conflict between the work done by two different developers, Dev A and Dev B, and where you need to resolve that conflict. And from that exercise, you should be able to better understand the basic operation of one of the more common challenges that comes in when you have a larger project with multiple people working on the same set of files at the same time. I thought without an actual hands-on experience of it, it's going to be a bit shrouded in mystery. So I really wanted to get you that experience as part of this lab. The lab should be fairly straightforward, especially building on the material here today on set. But do give appropriate time for getting things going. Debugging, really. The first problem, namely creation of regular expressions. It'll take getting used to some of the syntax used by SED and developing your understanding of how regular expressions work, particularly in a replacement context. So that's the lab. Because it is a little bit more straightforward than some other labs, and because the second problem is really step by step by step, asking you to do a bunch of things and then just comment and interpret the results, I have asked that it be turned in on Friday midnight, and that will give you several days further to work on the subject of the second announcement, with the final assignment, which is due on the last day of class. Okay, so that's next Tuesday. Of course, I'll be seeing you both on Thursday and Tuesday itself before that's due. So that was the subject of the second announcement. The third announcement has to do with the fact that I recorded the session last night. In an oversight, I didn't think to upload it while I was still on campus last night, and it's voluminous. So uploading it from home was not a ready option. I therefore will try to get it up there tonight. So that's the discussion last night. Most of that discussion was on the subject of pointers and issues of how data is stored in memory, what it really means to pointer, or what it means to have a pointer to integers, and a pointer to characters, etc. That information can be useful to kind of ground your understanding of what's really going on when you see that loop where it does P++ over elements of an array or something like that, a double array. But I did find that it took a lot of time to cover that material. Because of this, I've asked for a second review session, again optional. That time slot seemed to be the best one for people. And rather than going through a whole other sort of round of polls, that time slot, but I did want to get the information up there as soon as possible so you can plan your schedules around it. So apologies. We will again, put that online. And secondly, I would encourage people. We have a persistent problem with computer science. Perhaps it's not limited to computer science, where undergraduate students are often a little bit shy about asking questions. And maybe we saw a little bit of that last night. If you have questions you want to email to me, that's great. And you don't have to raise your hand in class. I can ask those questions. And that includes 4 people who can't be there. So send me a question, make sure it says in the subject line, question for review session, and I'll be sure to try to answer it there as part of the review session. I'll try to come with a list of these. So if you can't make it, send those things, that's great. This is not the final review. It's not the review for the final, it's not the final of the reviews. In neither sense is it the final review. It's just to sort of help us cover things. And because this last one, last night, was great, but it was very focused on sort of lower level issues. I wanted to use next time quite specifically for all the other things that we're covering. Things like SED, things like debugging, use of GDB, things like subversion, things like shell commands, pipelining. We're going to see use of some additional utilities, additional ways we can put shell commands together, test-driven development, all that sort of good stuff that we've also covered in an awful lot of hurry. And we'll make sure that next session we get ample time to sort of talk about those materials. Okay? So that will be next Monday. I've been working with the administrative assistants in our main office to find a location, hoping it will be 205A again, but we'll wait for final confirmation. Okay? So I'll be sure to have that. And then after that, we'll start working towards a scheduling for review session 4 the following. Okay. I think that's all the announcements. Any questions right now before we dive into these 2 topics which will inform your lab today? Okay. So we're going to